It is 6:30. I'll let everybody get settled here.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance for those who'd like to participate.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is a joint meeting of the Nottingham Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Adjustments, the Conservation Commission, and other town staff. We hold these meetings annually in order to get input and feedback on how things are going from each commission or board's perspective and figure out what things we should work on as a town. So the first thing on our, well, it's not on our agenda, but first thing we'll do is to go around and introduce ourselves. We're in a circle, so I don't know. I'll just start with myself. I'm Drew Stevens. I'm the chair of the planning board and also a conservation commissioner. We'll go this way.
Danny Arsenal, vice chair, and I'm chair of the zoning regulation update subcommittee.
Glenn Griswold, planning board alternate.
Adam Ryan, select board representative.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
Gary Anderson, Zoning Board of Adjustment Chair.
Mary Colvard, Zoning and Conservation.
Bonnie Winona McKinnon, Zoning Board of Adjustment, Vice Chair.
Dirk Rodenheis, Zoning Board of Adjustment, also the chair of the Master Plan Subcommittee.
Conservation.
State your name, please.
Planning Board Secretary, Master Plan Committee Resident.
Here is the George Planning Board.
Skip Severance, Planning Board alternate.
Andrew Lichtenwald, planning board.
Dale Sylvia, Building Code and Health.
And Tracy Stickney, Land Use Coordinator.
All right, thank you. I don't think I need to sit any alternates for any seats because we're not doing anything that takes votes, right? Okay. You guys will just be regular alternates tonight. So the first thing on our agenda is to review the 2025 joint meeting. Was that something that you were planning to do?
Yep.
Excellent. Take it away.
Thanks, Drew. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see everybody together again. This time last year, Dirk was the chair of this board, and he opened the meeting. You have the minutes in front of you. Most of you, I presume enough copies were there, so if you don't, wave your hand at Tracy and she'll get you one. But
I also think that everybody who was member present then is in this room now.
yeah, I did see that.
Except for John.
I saw a Mr. Slater on one of the names. Is that a typo? Do we have a Slater? It's on the back side, line 72. So if anybody can identify who Mr. Slater is, I'd be kind of curious. So I just wanted to give a brief update, just to get everybody on the same page for this evening. But as Dirk pointed out, it's a lot of the same faces, so I will be brief. We talked about a recap of the town meeting from 2025 and what zoning changes had passed. Danny's going to do the same thing tonight for 2026. We did talk about having some better communications around complex subdivisions, particularly ones that involve the development of a new road. With those and some changes around regulations with bonding, it's become a little confusing, and we just wanted to tighten up some of the communications. And so we talked about that a little bit. Dale may get into that again tonight. We shall see. Ms. Mooney had pointed out that the Concom appreciated that some developers have been coming before them before coming to the planning board, which is great to see. Did you have your hand up?
No, I just.
Oh, sorry. It was out of the corner. It was out of the corner of my eye. I thought you did. Yeah. All right. So then I took over at this point and went over the state changes at the legislature. If you recall, there were numerous, particularly around housing. But there were some other ones that affected procedures that were knee bone connected to the shin bone, going to affect housing. but for the most part, it was changes. So that sort of put the onus on the communities to begin to adopt these through a zoning amendment. And that's what we ended up working on for most of last year with regards to zoning amendments. That led to me talking a little bit about the timeline for zoning amendments. It's nearly the same this year. You are SB2, so your meeting will be in March, as usual. Which means that by December, we should be having our hearings. Last year, for the many changes that Daniel will go over, we had to have at least 3 hearings, maybe 4. I don't recall off the top of my head. But we had at least 3. Because we were doing them, I'd bring a slate forward, maybe 3 of them would be fine and could go and were sort of voted onto the warrant article, but a couple of them needed changes. So they had to go through, then I would bring some other ones up. So it was a bit iterative, but at the end, I think we did a very good job. Because we really did have our eye on that timeline. Again, it's similar this year, starting in December, we should start having our hearings, because we'll do it in January. We may have had to squeeze one in the beginning of February. I don't recall off the top of my head right now. And that was basically it. And then we talked a little bit about some other changes, subdivision site plan review. We did not get that to happen, but we are on top of it this year. The planning board has already had 2 meetings on some subdivision site plan review changes, and we're scheduled to have a hearing soon. What is it?
I think it's the 9th, September 9th.
The 9th, yes. So the first meeting in September will actually be a hearing to review and potentially approve some subdivision and site plan review changes. These are long overdue. Both those documents, I think one was 2015 and one was 2016, so it's been a while since they've been touched. So I'll leave it there. That was the meeting. Once again, I appreciate everybody coming out.
All right, I'll try to be just as expedient. The 1-sentence summary of the 2026 amendments is that we had to make some changes in order to be in compliance with changes at the state level. And then there was other things that we saw that we could clean up, like the surgeon while we're in there. And so
FYI, this document is the ones from last year. We
Yeah.
put this little guide together, if you didn't already figure that out.
Okay. So just going through them really quickly, we had to make a change to the appeals process. In the past, it said an appeal to the Board of Adjustment had to happen within a reasonable time, quote, and we essentially changed that to within 30 days, quote. Then we cleaned up the definition section to add some changes to accommodate accessory dwelling units, and just to add some other types of units and uses that were not defined previously. For Amendment 3, there were changes at the state level where we had to make things more permissive in terms of accessory dwelling units, and so we added and or changed the rules there. For Amendment 4, we put multifamily and a few other items into the commercial districts. I believe that was also required by state law. Similarly, for Amendment 5, state law, the town cannot require site plan review or other regulations for home-based daycare facilities. And so we edited our ordinances to match that requirement. Amendment 6, we made some changes to the town center district. Most importantly, I think adding multifamily dwelling and mixed use there, which was in keeping with wanting sort of a center of town look. And then Amendment 7, multifamily. Some of that was just cleaning it up and making definitions consistent and so on. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
I just want to jump in real quick. We're gonna have to do a lot of this again, because there have been changes at the state level. It's not nearly as robust, But one of the ones that we did do that Danny just discussed, this multifamily and commercial districts, that was one of the ones that was re-edited by the state that we will need to take a hard look at and see what effects that is for the community. It was a lot of clarification. There were a lot of communities that just didn't know what to do. Like with mixed use, how does that apply? Because supposedly you can't have, similar to the home-based daycare, you can't have more stringent regulations on multifamily in the commercial district than you would for any normal just commercial application. So for example, if you require 1 acre minimum for a commercial use, you can't require 2 acres minimum for multifamily. So you have to look at your regulations and the RSA and start to make sure that you're in line. And that'll be part of what we do.
Okay, next on the agenda is a series of discussions. I guess I'm not sure which ones you were planning on doing, Blair. Maybe
I can definitely do the first two, and just sort of introduce that. Introduce those?
Sure, if you like, yeah.
All right, so on the discussion section, we recently received a grant from the Piscataqua Region Estuaries Partnership Association, I think it is, PREP. And we had received one from them last year, and with that grant, we were able to write an update to the Natural Resources chapter. Out of that were some recommendations for some regulatory changes. So we applied for a grant to do that implementation piece, and we received that grant. And the two things we're going to be focusing on stormwater management regulations that are in the site plan review and subdivision regs. We're also going to be looking at zoning amendments for setbacks to boundary lines and to wetlands and other similar resources, so like vernal pools and buffer areas, that sort of thing. So those are the 2 items we'll be looking at, and we also will be doing some outreach. That hasn't kicked off yet. We're still getting through it. It'll probably get going in October. And then the planning board has started the process. I mentioned this in my introduction, that we are getting going on some subdivision site plan review regulation changes. Just to get through some of them. Most of these are low-hanging fruit. They're not really, that substantive in terms of like changing the way we have to do things. Some of it's bringing things in line with way it should be, making sure that it's in line with the zoning ordinance, right? So there's some definitions we have to change. So the first batch won't be anything that should be earth-shattering, but they are out there, and we are having a hearing on the 9th. Before I let Dale jump in, I wanted to ask if Dirk could give a quick update on the subcommittee, the master plan subcommittee, just to let us know where we're at with that.
Yeah, so the master plan subcommittee is officially more than a year old. We first met in July 2025. We have set up individual teams for each section. So for those that want to remember, I'll just read off the sections: the housing, natural resources, land use and zoning, historic resources, transportation and circulation, economic development, community facilities, energy, parks and recreation. All of those are in some fashion of development. The most developed are the housing and natural resources that Blair has been heading up, and we have grants for. So that's very helpful to get some assistance on those. We have probably had 8 or 9 meetings over the course of the year. And we have been working through some of these chapters. Some are between 95 to almost done, 95% to almost done. Some of them are like at a 50%. There are some key ones that we need to get through approvals just to make sure we have, I guess, for the state law, right? So we're meeting, almost every other month now, and we're gonna put a push here to try and get this wrapped up in the next few months. Summer's been a little bit quiet with the committees, but. And I think that's the brief outline that I have.
Yeah, that's great. As Dirk was alluding to, state RSA really only requires a vision chapter and a land use chapter. But the land use chapter should have some demographic data, so like, what's your population been doing? That's been getting roped into the housing chapters. So in a sense, the vision, land use, and housing chapters are your three primary ones. Everything, the state RSA just simply then states, here are other chapters that you can add to it. But in order to sort of be considered to have sort of a valid, updated master plan document, those two, maybe three chapters are what's required: the vision, the land use, and demographic data, housing, that sort of thing. So I think housing has been presented to the planning board, and it's been sent to public hearing for September 23rd. Also that night, I'll be presenting the natural resources chapter. That one will go to a hearing in October. That's the tentative schedule right now.
The land use chapter, Mary and I are the only two people here who are on that chapter subcommittee, and we met on,
Yesterday.
was that yesterday? Yeah,
Yes.
wow. And it's about 95 to 98% done, I would say. Almost ready to go to the planning board for review.
And I can say the same for historic resources. I got a new collaborator, and she was really good, so we're darn close.
We've got the community facilities kind of knocked out, because there was a study that was done, or a report that was done previously, and we'll just kind of fold that in.
There's a master plan subcommittee page on the website that has the presentation that I gave, and we'll get the chapter up there as well, so that you can take a look at it and send comments in advance of the hearing on September 23rd, if you'd like.
Is that under the planning board page, or is it under the boards and committees section of the town website?
It's part of the planning board page. It's on the left-hand side. It just says master plan subcommittee. Master plan update subcommittee.
Right.
Yeah.
Blair, at the last master plan meeting, I was unable to attend. I don't believe you were able to there also. Can you summarize what occurred at that meeting on, it was a week or so ago?
Yeah, it was to talk about the natural resources chapter, and I forget what we talked about.
It was the natural resources chapter. There were only maybe 5 of us who were able to attend.
Yeah.
But we were going over that and
Oh,
co-occurrence.
the co-occurrence mapping, that's what it was. So the co-occurrence mapping is when you begin to layer the maps and find out where the hot spots are. So you'll see that in the presentation. Yeah.
Okay, Dale, I think it's your turn.
In reference to the subdivision process, I'll give the same spiel I gave last year. My objective and goal was not to change anything. I don't have the authority, the rules, or anything like that. There's committees for that. What I was trying to do was, we had a situation where everyone's doing their job well. All of us, the departments, everybody's doing what they're supposed to, and what I learned is we didn't communicate well with each other or with the public, the applicants, and to be perfectly honest, we had an applicant take advantage of us. And to me, that showed that we needed to find a better way to, we weren't doing anything wrong. We just, when one department finishes a job or one board, there was nobody notifying the next person that what we needed to do, and we needed to have a better way of communicating. And I was trying to work on that and get that together. This is about 1.5 years ago. I asked for, basically everybody, I was gonna do all the work, but I was asking for everybody to give me what your responsibilities were. Everyone's very busy and stuff like that, so didn't really get a lot. So what we did is we had another joint meeting this year in 2026, and it was very productive. A lot came out of it, but the meeting wasn't kind of the intent of what it was. What we were looking for is to have people tell us what they were responsible for so we could put everything together. And it almost, the meeting itself almost kind of became of, well, what do we need to change? What do we need to do? And there was very productive stuff that came out of it, but we didn't really get a lot accomplished in regards to this one topic. We left that with everybody enthused and talking about getting this information together, and we're in the same spot we were. So I'm starting to think that maybe it's just me, that this isn't as necessary, and I don't know where to go with it. I've gone as far as I can because I need the information from what you guys are responsible for. Again, it is not my intent to change a single thing. It's just to collaborate all of it together. And we're kind of dead in the water. I don't know if this is something that we even need to pursue, keep going, but we're just spinning our wheels, to be perfectly honest. I don't know where you want to go with this.
Dale, if I remember, we also talked about process and kind of the flow of what goes
Exactly.
where. And I don't remember the action item or who was responsible, but maybe there's a couple entities, but we're gonna try and put together a draft flow chart of how this thing went. And I guess I don't remember where that went, obviously no.
That's what I'm talking about, is we all talked about it, but not a lot of information came in, so I couldn't put even a draft flow chart together. As far as, I'll give examples, and this isn't on any one department, but let's say that I'll use the example of what went wrong with this other applicant. It was about bonds and stuff like that as far as the road. And when one person who is responsible for the bonds, establishing them, when do they do, what triggers one thing to the next. And that's where, that's what was driving all of this. But of course, we were gonna look at everything. And that was the ultimate goal, was to have either a flow chart, or maybe not necessarily a flow chart, because as Blair pointed out to me, there's too many variables, but at least a matrix that says this makes this person have to look at what they were doing, however we came up with it. Sort of a flow chart, but not like a yes or no, just saying, okay, the planning board has met what they want to do, whose job is it at what point to see, because it's not always my job. Usually for the fact that it's very rarely my job, we usually hire a third party, we're having things like that. So who is coordinating that? When does this happen? When does this trigger? What is the bond? All of this stuff. Those are just kind of examples. And yes, that was the ultimate goal. I don't have much information to work with as to putting even a draft together. So I guess I would ask you guys again, is this something that we think is important? Is it worthwhile? Am I just thinking there's a bigger problem than there is? Or we did get burnt pretty bad one time, but we've also had, all the other cases have been very successful. So is this something that is worth doing or not? I'll leave that up to you. I don't mind doing the work, but I can't do it alone. I need input from you guys.
Dale, is it a particular gap in the process that allowed the town to be taken advantage of? Is it a matter of just filling that hole in our process, or are there multiple holes that you've identified that need to be patched up?
It all falls into one category, or two categories. Communication between ourselves, between board and staff, and our engineers, third party, things like that. And also communication between us and the applicant. In that particular case, we didn't tell the applicant when they had to give the bond. And they said, okay, I'm not gonna do it then. They just sat back, that was on us, not them. And I don't want anyone listening to think that this is a massive thing. Every other time it's been done right, but I just saw a hole where we could communicate better.
Was that bond requirement something that's normally a condition of approval that wasn't put on?
Well, there's always a bond on every road to make sure
Sure.
before we adopt the roads.
Yeah.
That the roads come up to our standards, but now we're talking about third-party engineers and stuff like that too. And they don't get their bond back until like a year after the last house is built. So yes, there'll always be a bond. But that's just one example. I don't want to put everything on that. It's the whole process. We're talking alteration of terrain, there's all kinds of things. There's certain conditions,
So, a couple of things. One is that, the state changed the way you can do bonding. And they basically changed it so that you can't do bonding unless one of two things happens. The applicant, the developer, comes to pull a building permit to build a home, or they go to sell a lot for someone else to go build on. One of those two things are the trigger. Both of those things are not until late in the process.
Yeah.
Normally what would happen, as Drew was sort of asking about, is it part of their decision? Well, that would often be something that the planning board would work out with the applicant and the third-party engineer during the application, the review phase, and decide what the bond is going to be and how that's going to be held, and that sort of thing. Applicant submits a statement of values, the third-party engineer reviews it, some wrangling, they agree to some numbers, and that becomes, and then that applicant goes out and gets a bond for that amount, and then it gets released as each one of those things are done. So that would normally get handled at the planning board stage, but now because of this change, there is no bond that's done or that's addressed until one of those two triggers happens. Well, what's gonna happen is that parts or all of the roadway will have been built, the stormwater management infrastructure will have been put in place. So you can't do it at the beginning when the approval is happening. You have to wait until one of those triggers happens, and then you say, okay, where is your project at? And then we make you bond for what's left so that they can go and get a permit or sell a lot. So it took out of the, there used to be part of the process. It used to be part of the notice of decision or just a condition for them to deal with. But when that changed, I don't think the town had seen one for a little while and didn't put anything in place. We haven't even changed the regulations to reflect this. It's one of the things, we keep talking about doing. So I'm sure that had something to do with where the communication breakdown was.
And I want to stress two things here. This whole topic is not about bonding. That's just the example I gave because that's what it was. It is about the communication process of whatever decision the planning board makes, and even between the planning board and the zoning board if they have to get involved, the selectmen, obviously me, conservation. It's how we just pass information back and forth. That's what this is about. It's not about bonding. And the second issue I want to stress, especially for the people watching out there, nobody is doing anything wrong. In fact, all the departments are getting it right. It's not about that. Everyone's doing a really good job. It's just that we don't communicate what we're doing with ourselves or with the public. There was another case, and I don't want to get into specifics, but there was another case where information wasn't passed on to the applicant and it just circles around. So that's all I'm trying to do is just take what we have. I'm not trying to change a single thing. It's just take what we do and figure out a way that we can bring this all together. That's my goal.
So on the communication front, one thing that I noticed is that I don't know how it was before. I've been here for almost 5 years now. I don't know how it was before that, but the way the regs read is that the third-party engineer, who is typically CMA, Josh Bouchard, if you've seen his name, communicates with the planning board during the application process to review all the documents. But then once it turns into a construction project and there is money in place, a bond in place, now all of a sudden the communication goes to the select board because they're the ones that have to bless the bond and then bless any reductions of the bond as project is advanced. So the planning board doesn't hear anything more about the project from CMA or typically the select board. And then of course that's taken, I would oftentimes be a conduit, or the land use coordinator would be a conduit. But now the conduit is Ellen's office, is her, because she's the staff person to the select board. So, that may be a point of clarification about, should the communication go through the planning board and then it goes from the planning board to the select board to say, okay, everything's been reviewed and, we think you can approve this. They can then take their action based on what those recommendations are. But I do think that there was some things that were maybe happening on that front, but the planning board wasn't taking any action because it really was no longer with them anymore. You know, it was now sort of up with the select board. That was one of the things that I did notice. But yeah, you know, there's a couple of gaps, but I think they can be plugged pretty easily without too much change.
So how do you wanna proceed?
I think having a conversation with, you know, maybe that includes CMA and Ellen, the select board, would be a place to start. For at least with, you know, that piece that I'm talking about. And I think we also need to take a look at the regulations, because we do have to bring them in compliance. And I think in doing that process, that exercise, I think it'll start to reveal some of the things you're talking about.
If we do that and we have another work session, we tried it once, I would ask that we focus on that, because what it turned into last time, which is human nature is common, was, well, what changes do we need, this, that, and it kind of went in a different direction, which was not the purpose. It was almost, in fact, it's not, should be done there, it should be done in the particular subcommittees. So if we're going to do that and bring people together, a representative from everybody, we need to just focus on the process.
Right.
So it sounds a little bit to me like one of the things that you're looking for is like an organizational map for how information needs to be brought back and forth, and also what triggers are going to be on each of those, you know,
That's exactly,
packets.
that's exactly what this is, yes.
Okay.
And it's not just for me, though, it's for,
For
it's
the applicants,
you know,
for the board, everything, yeah.
as
No, I
Blair
get
just
it.
pointed out, the Board of Selectmen have a, you know, they've got a lot of stuff on their plate already, they don't know when this is happening.
Right.
Somebody needs to tell them, okay, this is now your responsibility.
Right.
You know, and there's just so much stuff that happens that an activity could happen that nobody would think about or know about or something, but if we have this, it's just a flow chart.
Right.
That's a guideline, that's all this is. I'm not trying to change anything. Just a guideline as to what we're already doing or whatever changes you guys come up with in your subcommittees.
Dale, would it be helpful if the planning board remained in contact with CMA and the select board after we gave an approval? Because it seems to me, we give an approval on a subdivision and then we never hear or see anything of it again. One day I'm driving down and I see Pawtucket Ridge, I drove up and I'm like, oh, there's a road, oh, there's houses up here already. We never saw or heard another peep out of anything. It was just launched out of our hands. So I think it would be good if the planning board, you know, remained in this loop with CMA doing the review of the roads or the drainage or whatever improvements are.
I personally agree with what you're saying.
Okay,
However, that would be a change, and that's not what I'm trying to do. That's a change that you guys need to talk about in your own committees as to what goes done. Just because we start going down rabbit holes of we're gonna do this now, we're gonna do that, we're gonna change stuff. I'm not trying to change anything. That's something that you guys can come to the table with and say, this is how we're gonna operate. But for this committee or whatever we are, work session, I specifically don't wanna change anything because we are gonna go down that rabbit hole and all kinds of things, and I personally agree with you, but I don't think this is the conduit to get to that point.
Well, I sent you that document a while ago, you know, does that help anything? I mean.
It did,
So,
it did.
maybe circulate that around again. You know, I spent a lot of time on that one.
Yeah, I'm not saying we didn't get anything, we do have.
I'll see if I can find it again and.
I have it, if
and
not, I can send it out.
Circulate it around.
Dale, a question I have, you know, I saw in the 2025 report that there are permits for 18 new homes. There were 14 COs issued in 2025.
Number's a lot higher than that.
That's what the 2025 town report says.
That's because, okay, the reason why is there were all homes from the year before that get credited on the previous year that just weren't finished, that's why. There were new permits issued, yes, you're right.
Oh, okay.
We had a lot more homes than that being actually actively built, but a lot of those were permits from the year before that just houses weren't finished. So go ahead.
They took that time. So what I'm wondering about is, are you tracking things like ADUs? That's been a topic that, has been adopted in the ordinances over the last couple of years. ADUs, now detached ADUs, et cetera. Are you seeing any influx of ADUs?
We did, after last year's changes, we did, not tremendous amount, but we did see a lot, and I think we saw some ADUs that were perhaps built that we didn't know about that were illegal, that became legal after they were allowed to be detached, and people coming in and things like that. So we did see an increase in ADUs last year, but not like really spiked, but there were more.
3, 5, can we track numbers on that?
Yeah, it's a click of a button in Avatar. I don't have the top of my head right now how many there are, but we can give you all that stat at a click of a button.
Okay. I think that would be good for us to kind of track, what changes we've made and what impacts they therefore create, and see if we're going in the right direction or wrong direction.
Well, as you just said with the numbers you had, it's in the town report every year.
The ADUs is not separated in that report.
I can add that this year
It
if you
just
want.
says single family.
I'll add ADUs to the town report this year.
So coming back to the, processes and communication, in your view, is it just communication that's happening or not happening between the planning board and the select board and you, or are there other?
No, again,
Other things
I
at
don't
play.
want to, this is not a finger pointing thing, it's,
That's not what I meant.
yeah, no, I know, but like,
Does it involve, like the ZBA as well, or there,
I think it even
instances
involves
where-
land use, the land use clerk.
Okay.
She has a lot of power and responsibility over there. She's doing a really good job too, as far as bringing records up and stuff this year. It's amazing the work that she's doing. I think she needs to play a key role in this too, that position. So it's not just the boards, it's us, it's me, like, when do I do something? It's our third party. I believe it's bigger than just the two big boards.
Yeah, I guess maybe what I'm asking more is it a thing that is more for the representatives of the boards, or the land use coordinator, Blair, yourself, Ellen, the people who kind of, do the things behind the scenes to move that forward? Because the boards themselves have significant turnover pretty much every year. So is it something that the boards themselves, you think the communication, is lacking there, or is it more that there needs to be a process established for communication between the, town staff or contractor?
I kind of believe it's all of it. I really do. I don't think it's just on the boards. We have to put this on the town staff too, because we're the ones that take all the information from the decisions you guys make. So it's, if you look at communication, it's, you have a sender, receiver. If it's up to us to know, it's not just on you to tell us, it's up to us to know when, but if we don't have the trigger factor to tell us what it is. So I think it's really kind of all of our responsibilities.
Gotcha. So when the planning board, makes a decision on a case, that notice of decision is typically put together by Tracy and Blair and then sent out. So the board doesn't, at the meeting, of course, the board decides what that decision will be. But after that, it just kind of goes beyond the board itself.
Exactly.
And so,
And I think that's exactly what Dale's getting at, is that once that has left our hands, where does it go? Who does it go to? Whose responsibility is it to then take it to the next?
But it can also be, let's take it beyond that. It may be the state. And the state doesn't care about, the state may send us a letter saying this has been happened, and that letter gets filed, but we need to have, okay, so this information, alteration of terrain permit's been issued, shoreline permit, or whatever it is, or even on a bigger scope than a building, but let's say your buffer zones and things like that, whatever it is. So it's information that comes into us, however it comes in. It may come in from the applicant themselves. I don't think it's really a board or a staff. It's really just this massive amount of information, and where does it go? It's everyone. And it's really right now, and the reason why I say nobody's doing anything wrong is because it's no one's responsibility. I'm trying to assign some responsibility that this triggers this, so people know what they're responsible for as far as communication. Okay, I got this piece of paper, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a board, I don't think it's staff, I mean, it's just flow of information.
Okay, I'm just trying to untangle it a bit in my mind to try to find a strand we can start pulling on, and it just seems like a pile of spaghetti that's hard to.
I think that's fair, that's why, yeah.
Okay. I guess I don't feel like we're.
And the other
anymore.
thing is, and we've looked at this too, I don't feel like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What other towns do, and I've looked around a little bit, and there's not really a lot though, but I don't know if that's a resource or how, some of the bigger cities might have plans in place, but we don't have those kind of resources and things like that, so that's not what it is. This can just be, because there's no regulations, there's no requirements, this doesn't have to be convoluted and it doesn't have to be excessive. It's really just to make us think about, oh yeah, I need to tell this person that, in simplified terms.
So Blair, you did do something on that, and it's like, I don't remember it getting circulated, but you said you did, so you did.
Yeah, I try to break out,
Maybe recirculate that.
and maybe people can just find your name or find your title or whatever thing you know about on here and edit it or something. It's just tasks by who it is.
Do you remember where that came from?
I just made it.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just started creating it. Yeah, there's that one too, but
Did
that's,
that,
yep.
But I was thinking if we did like an interdepartment one.
Drew, I apologize, I have to run out for a minor thing.
Tracy, is that the town one?
Apologize.
That's the one I use for planning. It's just a checklist when an application comes in and all the next steps.
And I don't wanna imply that we haven't got anything, Dirk and I have had conversations a while ago, the previous land use clerk provided some things. We've got a little bit, but not enough to do anything with.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that anything we have is good, but back when I was chair of the planning board, there was a flow chart, if you will, as to what happens after things go from point A to point B. Doesn't mean they don't come back again to the planning board. Did you really mean to do this kind of a thing, or the people are there to start cutting the trees at 6 in the morning, who knew this was gonna happen, that kind of stuff. Yeah, the board does their deal with the acceptance, and then it moves along. Goes down the chain someplace. That's what Dale's trying to figure out, is what chain is that, what train track is that going down? How many train tracks is it going down? How many cars on the trains? And we used to have something like that. I'm not saying it's appropriate today at all, but we used to have something like that, and some of that was contained in these documents.
Do you know roughly what year that was?
1950, what?
USA Springs. 80.
Oh, so it's not something we're gonna find.
I've got a copy of the really old zoning and subdivision stuff, 1974 to 1987. So I might have a copy of it.
Yeah, it was, I wanna say it was contained in some of the files that had all the history documents for the subdivision plans, the subdivision regs, site plan regs and the subdivision regs and the zoning that exists.
It might be a place to start, but as you can see with the amount of amendment changes we've had, it's so much of that's gonna be outdated, though, that might all be valid,
This
there'll be
is
so
where it
much more.
goes. There's portions in here in these documents that say selectmen do this.
Yep.
They are in here, but nobody ever gets to them anymore. I'm not even sure the selectmen know that those things are in here. There's nothing that would tell them it's in here, if you will.
And that's
So-
kind of my overall goal
That's
is
correct, and
trying to
I
get us all
understand
on the
that.
same
And
page.
I'm thinking there was something out there like that previously that could be updated to show the various people. I mean, it's turnover tends to affect a lot of things. The boards obviously have turnovers every year. You know, you hope that the rest of the staff that's out there stays for a while. But sometimes everybody changes.
Oh, I think turnover is probably the biggest valid reason to do this. So when somebody new comes in, they know
It
what
is
they're
the reason
responsible
to
for.
do it. It is the reason to do it. But it's also the reason to try and keep that documented in some manner in these regulations or someplace. Just
Yep,
needs to be
that's,
documented.
that's literally what I'm trying to accomplish.
It
Understand?
sounds like more of a living document that constantly is changing, but it's also visible to anybody
Everyone,
yeah.
that needs to.
Yep.
Yep.
or
A
might-
guideline, not this is just a guideline. This isn't gonna be a rule or a regulation or anything like that.
But
It's
it's-
a guideline to help us
it's
and
a-
help the applicant.
It's a visionary thing that
Yeah.
any of us here would be able to know, oh, that happened 5 years ago,
Right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So what I don't understand is this, we approve a subdivision and with conditions, and there's gonna be 12 inches of gravel and 4 inches of pavement on top, and the developer says, oh, I'm gonna put 10 inches and 3 inches of pavement, and does whatever they would do, which is not in accordance with the plan. We'll never know about that. Do you hear about that from CMA? Is CMA inspecting the process, looking at the road base, looking at the pavement, looking at the drainage? And what if they did something wrong? Would the planning board ever know that? Would that get passed to Dale? Would that get passed to the selectmen? When does it come back to the planning board to say, hey, they're not doing what we approved? We never know that.
Yeah, I mean, CMA is contracted to do field inspection reports. And there are certain milestones of the process where they have to be on site and witness something happen. So if it's pouring a sub base, or if it's, digging a trench to a certain
Where are
level,
those inspection reports?
they go through the select board.
Okay, so they get sent there.
Yeah.
So we never see them. So if there's an issue or a challenge or something's not done according to the plan we approved,
Well, if it's not done according to the plan, it would come back to us if something had to be changed. But there are field amendments that are just, it doesn't require an approval amendment. It just is a field amendment to the project, right? The plan says it was here, but they moved it 5 feet over here. Does that change the layout of a 20-lot subdivision? No, it doesn't.
Right.
But, it gets reviewed and approved, and that's a field change. The reports are, documenting the construction process and also the status of the process so that the select board can vote on releasing bond. That's what's driving a lot.
can we get copy of those reports on the planning board so that we can say, this is what happened?
We don't really have a role at that point. This isn't an implementation board. This is a regulatory board, It's not, in all honesty, once it leaves this board's hands, it should be a staff issue. You should have the road agent, and if we don't have anybody on staff as an engineer, then you have your CMA, you have your building inspector, and everybody does their duties. The reason why the reports are going to the select board is just so that they can monitor and approve the drawdown of the bond. If they're not approving the construction techniques or the quality of the work, there should be staff that are doing that. People that are experts in the fields. You're all volunteers. You're not going out there and doing field inspections.
Right.
So it could be that could be a change. I was alluding to that earlier. If you read the regulations, it actually says that CMA is like a hire of this board. But if it's informing the drawdown on the bond, I don't know. It's a gray area on who they're actually reporting to.
The difficult part is the selectmen need to know that they do that.
Oh, yeah, someone
We
needs
need
to
to know
do.
that they do
And they
that.
do.
Yeah.
To be honest, that process is working. CMA, I'm not gonna get into specifics. CMA is
But
given
my point is, all of the
inspections
other
that have not
entities that are
gone well,
involved need to know.
and it has been, that has not been
don't
an
know.
issue.
It goes to the select board,
But
then they
it's-
call you and go,
The road agent is involved too.
oh, okay, so
I don't actually go out and I don't pretend to know how much gravel is needed. That's the road agent is involved in that, overseeing it. That is being done.
Like the last meeting, we could talk about this for a while. Why don't we put a pin in this one and move on? You know, we can, you know, maybe I can clean up this document, recirculate it. Everybody can start thinking about it again. We can figure out what to do, and go from there.
So if we do that, I would ask, so if we're gonna try this again, once that document goes out,
Okay, but someone's got to follow up with everybody and keep nagging.
I'm willing to do it.
Okay, well,
But
you got
to be honest, I'm just begging for information. I'm not
I
getting
know,
it,
and
so.
that involves follow up. I mean, that's what my job is on a daily basis. Tracy's job is on a daily basis is follow up.
That's why, when there was no follow-up, I went to the board and to Ellen and I asked to have a work session. We had a work session and that got derailed and kind
No
of went,
follow
you
up.
know.
I know. I understand.
I can't tell volunteers, it's not my
So-
place to tell you
It is.
volunteers what to do. I don't have that kind of authority. I'm asking repeatedly,
You're
like,
not
you know.
saying with a gun to our head, you have to do this. You're asking if we can volunteer some time to help you with it. So there's a difference there, you know. You should nag us if you need that information. That's the only way a lot of things get done.
Yeah.
All right, with regards to looking at, you know, part of what we want to do here, like this meeting's goal is to kick off zoning amendment season and any regulatory change season that we want to do. So I'd like to hear from ZBA, conservation, you know, the different members of the various boards and of course the planning board and staff. What are the issues that have been bubbling up that we need to start thinking about? Hopefully we can address them this year. Maybe we just, you know, maybe it has to be something that we do over time. You wanna get going?
Sure.
Please.
Well, I really think that we're seeing excessive amount of variance issues for what I think are minor. So it may be something that's in the definitions or a change. How many sheds have we had lately?
2 or 3.
So.
You're talking about dimensional variance.
Yeah.
Right, dimensional, you know, so it's a lot of very minor variances that seem to me through the zoning ordinances could be alleviated somewhat. Now, whether it's, for instance, we'll use the sheds, for example, you know, is it a certain size shed that, look, these buildings are movable? You know, if they're not meeting setbacks on a tiny lot, is that a concern? You know, so.
It's the lake.
So one thing that a lot of towns do is they'll have setbacks for primary structures and then a completely different setback for accessory structures, sheds, garages, whatever, up to a certain size. And, you know, maybe that's something that we can certainly take a look at.
But as a conservationist now, and zoning, some of these do seem trivial in terms of the setbacks. But we did have one issue that bounced between conservation and zoning that involved a garage and significant wetland intrusion.
Mhm.
And that, I think, is a whole different ballgame. And I think the
yeah,
wetland
absolutely.
setbacks need to be considered. And
Yep.
so I think that's where our site visits are important, and it's also important to have a true representation of the topography of the lot that's requesting the setback.
And a garage is not what I consider
Right.
trivial.
The problem with that
Yeah, no,
scenario,
yeah, no, absolutely.
the problem with that scenario is, let's say, whatever number you pick, let's say you say 200 square feet, doesn't need a permit, a shed doesn't need it, that will just make up that number. Now, let's go over to what you're talking about, so now they're gonna put that 200 square foot shed or 199 square foot shed 5 feet from the water, which requires a shoreline permit, the applicant out there is gonna be like, I don't need a permit, I'm just gonna do it. And then we're gonna be circling around, and
Right.
if they don't know ahead of time. So I understand what you're saying as far as, cause I'm the one that has to write all these up, and it, you know, I don't like it either, but there's kinda, when I get to my turn, I'm gonna talk about the definition of a structure. It's frustrating because if you're writing the same variance up all the time and you're approving it, then what you should do is change the zoning ordinance.
Yep.
But if we do change it in this case, you're gonna solve one problem and create 2 or 3 others.
Well, I mean, you can set it up such that, and it gets a little bit more complicated, but, you know, say that you allow accessory structures, however that's defined, up to a certain size within 10 feet of the property line, but still keeping, you know, 25, 50, 75 feet from wetlands. You know, that's.
I think that'll be confusing to the applicant, and the reason I'll give you an example is right now, the way the ordinance reads is a 144 foot square shed we do not charge for. You still require a permit. All the time, people do sheds underneath, and they're like, I don't need a permit, I can do what I want. And then it comes back and, you know, so even if we all understand it, I don't think the average homeowner that doesn't pay attention and follow these rules is going, and I'm not saying anything against them, but they're just gonna see it as, I don't need a permit. And then the state's gonna get involved, well, you did this, now you're in trouble because you did it next to the water. So before you do that, there would be consequences that we need to consider.
Yeah, I think we,
Oh, yeah.
there's definitely a lot of details to look at, and especially the size, because,
Valid.
8 by 10 versus 20 by 12 is a little different.
So for the 144 square foot requirement, people are finding that somewhere, right? So is it just that it isn't clear where that information is at, that you need a permit even though it doesn't cost anything?
Well, if you look at our fee structure, it says, does it cost anything? And a lot of people either determine that or just use that to their advantage, just says, I don't need a permit, just, do it.
So
And I think people that genuinely wanna do the right thing, it's not misleading, it's just how they interpret it.
So is there a way to clarify the interpretations so that, if there's no charge for it, but you do need to get a permit? Like if that's happening often, it seems like it's a
Communication.
clarity and communication issue potentially. If people just see that number and say, I can do it, I don't need a permit, and they're not doing it maliciously or whatever.
Right.
Perhaps that's something that just maybe needs to be clarified in some way.
I think the ordinance itself is fine, our fee structure says something different, and if you don't have them both in front of you, that's the problem.
Maybe we could take a look at the fee structure and see if there's something we could do to clarify that a bit. That doesn't seem like too heavy of a lift, hopefully, not like changing the zone.
Yeah, you're right, that's an easy fix,
Yeah.
but going back to what she's saying, wetlands is gonna be, that's the big one.
Yeah. But what other variances were there last year?
Building an
Something
apartment over a business, so that goes with the chicken farm thing. Because they approached it as an agricultural endeavor.
Okay.
And they told us at zoning and conservation it was perfectly okay to do what they're doing. I'm just repeating.
However, it was in a commercial zone, so
Yes.
that was the only reason for the variance.
Yeah, because it's not, residential's not permitted in the commercial zone, except for theoretically multifamily.
Oops.
Mainly, the sheds were standing out in my mind.
We've had 3 sheds in a row, I think.
Yeah, that's why. Others.
What have you denied? Like, what have been like the applications that have been denied? Like, what are people asking for?
The one main denial was just because they had already received the variance and they were trying to extend off that, and it was not, that wasn't it.
One that bounced back and forth a number of times was that they were sent to us in terms of the wetland intrusion. us being conservation. And then, they said that they didn't need to provide us with the classification of the soils in the wetlands. Was it a hydric A or a hydric B wetland and that sort of thing? And we said, oh, yes, you do. And so it bounced between the two, and it was kind of nice that I could sit in both chairs because they came back to zoning with a little bit of misinformation. And finally, they got it right. And finally, it was approved.
Right.
But it was a struggle.
Sure.
Do you guys often have issues with the pre-existing non-conforming lots down on Duckaway? You know, all the little camp lots that people are building full-time
Lots of
houses
them.
on?
Lots of them.
Many.
That's what most of our work is.
Mhm.
From the little lots that are non-conforming, that the setbacks are reduced, they still want them reduced further because they don't have any room.
Right.
To put a little shed.
So,
We get a lot of those.
Yeah, but
It's
no-
primarily from Pawtucket. I mean, there are a few others around town, but they're rare.
Right.
Compared to just from,
to speak to what you're talking to, as far as just clearing stuff up, I have a few things that repeatedly come up and they don't even make it to the ZBA. But they're constant problems, and it's like, one, because people don't know, and they don't, whether they have to or not. And I was hoping that maybe we can clarify some stuff in the zoning, in the ordinance. One is revolved, let's go big picture. I'd really like to look at the definition of a structure. What is a structure? Because what requires a permit? And again, going back to the simplicity of somebody that's just trying to figure this out, do I need a permit for this or not? I'd really like to look at that structure, and I'm gonna give you one specific that was sort of a major problem. But things like fences, people don't know if they need a permit or not. Right now, they don't. However, there are rules with fences, and nobody has any idea what those rules are, and I have no way of telling them those rules. There are rules where you can put a fence. And I think that we are at the point that we need to have a fence permit, not for money or not for anything like that, but just to clarify the problems before they start. And it goes back to, if you guys change any one thing for me this year, it's like, I'd like to talk about what structures are. And I'll give you an example of a sort of a major problem we had. It doesn't, in 2C, it's very, very clear as to what our setbacks and stuff are. We had a case where an applicant, or where a neighbor filed a complaint against another neighbor's well. And we don't control wells. The state decides where wells go. It's almost the same thing as ultimately the state's approved septic, but we do have setbacks for septic. We have our own. For wells, we have nothing. The state approves it. We don't even look at it. I've talked to a lot of other building inspectors. Hardly anybody has anything to do with it. It's a state issue. However, a neighbor found in this case that well is listed in structure in the back of definitions. I didn't know it. Nobody knew it. And they complained that the neighbor's well was too close. This ended up going all the way to the state. They had to have a hearing up there. And the hearing, it's immaterial what happened, but the definition of a well, it was all because the state looked at it and said, well, this is in your definition. So I'd really like to look at the definition of what a structure is. Typically what I tell people is if it's man-made, you're gonna need a permit just because that's our way, and that's not always the case. But if it's man-made, you can't be on your neighbor's property line. Fences obviously can, so even though we say, like we recommend that people put a fence a foot off, technically you could put right on the property line. Of course, if you screw up and you go over 6 inches and they wanna complain, you're moving it, that's why we tell them back. But it would be a way for us to communicate with people ahead of time and say this is what's required. So I'd like to look at what the definition of a structure is specifically in regards to wells and fences, and even like patios. Can you put a patio right up to the property line? You know, so you have people with pools, you have a pool, and then they have like a patio is just a bunch of pavers. But at the same time, do you want somebody on your property line, you know, yelling and screaming? And then like, what's the intent of the ordinance? So I'd really like us to take, I'm asking when you review, that you take a very strong look as to what a structure is and what is gonna be in that and not. That's the one thing that I'm asking for this year.
Do you have examples from other towns that have defined structure that you think work well, that are better definitions than what we have?
No, but I will get you that.
Okay, especially if you can ask other building inspectors if they have similar problems, because, you know, it's always helpful for us on the planning board when we have other examples to work from that we can compare to our own and see, okay, yeah, this seems like it'll work. Sometimes we'll pick pieces from, you know, different surrounding towns' ordinances just to figure out what works best for us, so.
I'll get it to Blair within a week or two.
Okay, that'd be very helpful.
Thank you.
What about carports, shelter logic, things like, you know,
Those are in here.
Yeah.
They're in the zoning.
that's a structure that needs a.
Under the structure definition.
Are you telling on yourself right now?
No, I don't have one anymore.
But
As
structure
it should
shall
be, I
not
mean-
include boundary wall, fence, driveway, and in-kind replacement septic system.
The shelter logic is movable though.
Shall not. That's the shall not list.
Do you want, and I'm not being, I guess I am being facetious, do you want your neighbor having a car shelter on your property line with whatever they could possibly put in it? Is it a structure? Is it, you couldn't put a shed there,
I was
you can't
thinking
put
more
a
about
garage.
the permit type of thing though.
Yeah,
Our structure says it's a carport.
Yeah.
It has a carport in there, so
Yeah.
it would
Right.
require a setback.
I think he's
Setback, yeah.
referring to the portable tent kind. You know, that's,
It's a
A lot of
man-made
people-
structure, you gotta bolt it and
Yeah.
everything together, but it can be.
I had an individual today tell me that he was gonna put a major structure on wheels and it's temporary. You know,
And when you came by, he'd wheel it this way and then.
Did he register
wheel
it?
back when you left.
I said that, I said, you better get a VIN number for it.
Well, it seems too that the well situation that you mentioned also comes down to enforcement. Am I right? I mean, because
Well, all of
You're-
this
that's
is
something that-
enforcement. The difference with the well is it's state.
right. So
That's the difference with the well. And
Except in this particular case, it's hidden in our definition.
well, it is in the definitions and perhaps that should be changed to reflect something like whatever the state says.
Yeah. That's what I'm,
Something to that effect.
that's what I'm asking us to look at.
I'm looking at the
fine.
gas or liquid storage also.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I saw
And
that
and
too.
that
yeah.
has its own little tweaking thing to it.
You know, what you'll find sometimes is that you'll see the words building defined and the word structure defined. And, you know, building becomes like, I don't know, more akin to habitable space, and structure is, you know, everything else. So you don't end up with, so in your setbacks, you would say buildings 50 feet, structures 10 feet, something like that. Because to try to capture it all is gonna be tough. Your example of a patio would seem to me to be a difficult one to do. I mean, how is a patio any different than a lawn? They serve the same function. It's flat, it's there. You can put tables and chairs on it and create chaos.
Because you have stormwater runoff.
What's that?
Because you have stormwater runoff now.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm literally involved in that with the
I
state
know,
right
but with,
now.
Permanent impact.
but with, but with 2 acres, I mean, I don't know that we're really getting the stormwater management of individual homeowner lots, are we?
We're not, except this particular case that we're
Except in
involved
shorelands.
in is on the water. And so now it goes back to the wetlands issue. And that's what I was talking about before, and the state is involved in this, so, and the state does consider the patio as a structure, they're looking at it. That's what's happening right now.
So this is not a simple change of just amending the definition. You know,
We can at least fix what we know is a mistake. The well is a mistake, we need to remove that, or, let me rephrase that, I'm suggesting to you that you remove that.
That's a state-approved well, by the way. State-approved well, not something from.
Not just plopped and
Dug well from 1890.
Yeah, or however
Dig
you
a
wanna
hole.
say that, yeah. One of the older wells.
Well, I don't think you'll be installing an 1890 well in 2026, so I wouldn't have anything, it would be existing anyways.
But somebody might
No, but
complain
yeah,
that that
but it's
1890
existing.
well
Right.
is infringing.
But it's
But
pre-existing,
it's
so.
pre-existing, so it
Yeah.
wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still gonna complain,
but.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't think we're gonna fix everything here, right? We're just trying to identify some of these
Yeah.
things, so.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other issues that zoning sees that they'd like to bring up?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
I mean, we wouldn't have anything to do though if we didn't have a clause.
Gives us meaning.
Therefore,
How about Conservation Commission?
I don't know, I'm trying to think of, mentioned a few things with the wetland issues, but I think the only thing I can think of is, we've had one for monitoring, which is Mendham's, and I'm not sure how we ever got involved in the Mendham's monitoring, for conservation. It borders, Barrington on Route 4. And so part of that whole property is in, half of it's like in Barrington and the other half is Nottingham, and there's 2 parcels. But every year we have a more and more difficult time monitoring, and this year it just didn't happen. It's like one more, oh yeah, it's Mendham's. And so I know it's been mentioned with like maybe a drone, or we look to see if there's another agency that can take Mendham's on, which is kind of a different type of easement for us. So that's just one of the things that comes up on our plate that we're like, we don't have time for this one. And it's a large acreage. It's like, anything else, Mary, that you can think?
I think it's probably worth mentioning that the Conservation Commission did support the PREPA grant that we were awarded because the Conservation Commission found it valuable to, seek the stormwater management regulations and the septic building and buffer setbacks for wetlands as well. So, as protectors of those resources, or the, commission responsible for trying to better protect those resources, that was something that we all found very prudent to put before the town. So I think on the planning board side of that, we were also looking, there's been a lot of discussion about how we can relax things to make some building easier. And so now kind of the idea that's being looked at is to relax some of the boundary setbacks, like side and rear setbacks, and in conjunction with increasing wetland setbacks as well, so that there are more opportunities within a lot to build, but that the natural resources that, wetlands often span multiple lots, that those will be better protected long-term. So that's kind of how those tied together between the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board.
how has the monitoring been going, like on Revolutionary Drive in that area where all the tags were put in and all that kind of stuff? Is
That
that
actually was, I'm trying to think,
you guys?
we do we do Revolutionary? We were doing some parcels on the back lots that was conserved, and that got to be a little difficult for us. It was one thing that was just put upon us because the developer
Right.
had this conservation and said, oh, the Conservation Commission is gonna monitor these. And we did for many years, but anytime there was an infraction, it just kind of went into a hole and nothing was done.
Right.
So we kind of got tired of doing that because it was a huge process. You had to send
Huge.
letters out to 20 different families to get permission, and then to go and check all these things. And then if there was an infraction on particular lots, which there was one, nothing really was ever done. So we were like, why are we doing this
Right.
when nothing ever becomes of it? And so I know Sue Mooney was more involved than I was with this, and so I know there was a final letter that we just said, we've monitored all we can, maybe RCCD or somebody else can monitor this, because nothing's becoming of it.
Yeah.
So we dropped that, because we have enough other things to do.
Right. And I don't think we've done one of those for a while with you folks anyway, right? Have we-
No, because that was our big complaint, where there would be this conservation area, the backlot conservation, and then it was put upon us, you know, in that circumstance. The others usually went to RCCD or some other entity to oversee, and that makes more sense than for the Conservation Commission.
I don't think we've done that in a while. With you folks taking over that inspection aspect, monitoring aspect.
Yeah,
It's been a
yeah,
while.
it was a lot of work for volunteers. I mean, we do a lot of other ones that we enjoy doing, like Trinyanko or something. But we didn't enjoy doing those, and it's a lot of work. You're tramping across all these properties after you've sent out all these letters, and then you find issues, and then nothing becomes of it. So we're like, why are we doing this to no end? So yeah, that was ended.
There was a 2-lot subdivision on Stevens Hill Road last year, maybe the year before, that the Conservation Commission did secure a monitoring easement on, but with there wasn't any obligation to do yearly. It was only an easement for access to a critical wetland off of Quincy Pond. It wasn't something that required any annual monitoring to it. It was just to retain some type of access to that critical wetland for potential monitoring. That's the closest I can remember.
For that piece.
For that
only,
piece, yeah.
not for the pieces that were subdivided.
It was like a 50-foot wide by 100-foot long part of the parcel.
So what would be something that you would identify as an issue and then say, hey, we can't do anything about it? What would be an example?
Well, there was all kinds of things with one property, fences being put on and ducks in a wetland and debris or a shed being built into the conservation area and all that.
Trees cut.
Trees cut, yeah, so lots of issues. And then we would send it basically to the select board. We say, well, here's the issue, and then like it's out of our hands. So because we can't, I mean, we're not enforcement. We just kind of, here's what's happening and here we go. But it was kind of this like, okay, now what do we do with it? So but those would go to the select board.
Thank you for doing that. Let's keep an eye on those things.
Yeah, we try.
Okay, how about planning board in general? Actually, maybe would this be a good time for Tracy to bring up what you've been working on and seeing quite a bit recently?
Sure. Sure. An issue that's going on, not just our town, surrounding towns, other counties, is there's scammers that are targeting any kind of case that comes through here. I've got some examples I can pass around if you want, but it really just boils down to even a conceptual got an invoice mailed to them afterwards for like $6,000, and they look it all looks very professional. It's got my name on it, creepy to see, and they're asking for wire transfers, which we don't do. But I mean, any planning, zoning, every application. We had a zoning last Tuesday, and it was, it was all nice and pretty, and there was no need to continue. They were able to make a decision on the spot. So the people came that one day, got their application approved. 6 o'clock in the morning when they logged onto their computer, there was an invoice from the town for like $6,000. So then that skipped a day where, so that was Tuesday. They got that on Wednesday. Thursday, I was working with Gary for the notice of decision, so I sent over the notice of decision. And I just happened to put on it, even though I hadn't seen any for ZBA, I just happened to put on there, please beware, there are scammers. You're paid in full. If somebody, tries to send you an invoice, please disregard it. And she instantly said, as a matter of fact. So that's how I found out that even the ZBA ones. Yeah, I mean, it's like lightning. So I don't know if they're monitoring the TV, because the Nancy uploads the recordings the following day. So it had to be, they must be monitoring the live circuit, but, so,
Looking at the notice of decisions or something like that, but it's, yeah. I had a case a few months ago before the planning board for a major home occupation, and a few days after that, I received an email saying, oh, the town needs, you know, you to complete this application, you know, you're ready for approval, and that email was signed by myself as the chair of the planning board, which is why I knew it was totally bogus, but now they're
Right.
apparently using Tracy's name instead, so
Yeah.
that puts a little heat off me, which is nice.
Yeah,
But yeah,
so-
they've been doing it for months now, and it seems like it's potentially every planning board case and now every ZBA case that's coming through.
There must be other towns that have the issue.
Yep,
too.
other towns, other
Yeah.
They
counties.
don't know who's behind, it's like, you know, somebody from out of the country or, you know, they don't
Yeah.
know.
Nigerian prince has moved on to different,
Yeah, it's really
different
scary.
techniques.
It's great that you put that on there, and I know when the title companies were receiving, this about 15 years ago, it started with wire frauds. There's just an automatic message in their email signature that talks about fraud, so maybe we need to think about doing that with your email signature to just
Yeah.
give people a heads up while they're applying, and also when they're getting a decision that they're aware of those things.
Yeah, that's the thing. Ellen, months ago, put alerts on the computer. So when you logged on the website in a few different places, there were alerts. We've talked about it to people in the meetings. I'm trying to put it on the emails.
Great.
I don't know what else we can do.
Have you heard of an instance where somebody paid one of these invoices?
I haven't heard that. I hope not.
Somebody
But
has.
somebody probably has.
They're doing it for a reason,
Oh,
Yeah.
you know?
I've heard of one, I believe it was in Barnstead, or it might have been Epsom. But one of the towns right over there, they had someone, having a subdivision done, and they got hit for, I think it was close to $5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do they ask for a check?
Most of them ask for a wire transfer.
Which
Yeah, so they
always
get
is
the cash.
suspicious.
Right.
Nobody does,
Yeah.
no town ever does wire transfers, no bank, no nothing, so it should be ring the alarm with anybody that if anyone says wire transfer, it's like,
Still shocked somebody paid the town that fast.
right?
If you don't do this type of thing often, you know. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that it's email that people are getting it through, because a lot of people handwrite their email, and I don't see how any software could really pick it up with some of the chicken scratch that I see. I mean, I guess it is getting far more sophisticated, but
You'd be surprised, you know, it could be a first pass with, you know, something algorithm wise, and then another pass with human eyes just to, it depends on how many they're going through, right? There
Yeah.
aren't that many cases that are getting approved here, and, you know, maybe the scammers are, you know, parceling up different counties to different scammers, you know? Somebody's got Rockingham County, is going through those towns. I don't know. But things are getting more sophisticated so that they can automate those things a lot easier and be a lot more accurate and convincing. But either way, is that something that can be included on notices of decision? Some type of, you know, warning about those scams, or that, you know, all fees have been paid, or, you know, something that is just, you know, the applicant is absolutely going to see it and read through it type thing. I think putting it in your signature on your email is probably a good idea too, just so, you know, the people you're corresponding with will know that as well. But if it's something that's possible to put into notices of decision, that's probably the like prime place that the applicants are gonna be looking, right? Once they get those notices, they probably are pretty thoroughly gonna read through that. So that might be something to try anyway, to see if that helps protect, you know, I'm glad we haven't apparently had anybody fall for it, but it's only, with these things, it seems like it's only a matter of time. Like Blair said, they wouldn't be doing it unless they didn't have some amount of success.
I think if we maybe just tell them more, like myself at the beginning when they make the application, and then when they're here at the end, we should tell them again, and that's going over the airways, hey, we're on to you. Because this one, I hadn't even given them the notice of decision and they had already beat me to it,
Yeah,
so.
maybe that could be
I mean,
added
all
to
their
the-
information's
I don't
on the
know.
website from,
Be a
you
better
know,
place for it.
for a week or
Yeah,
two.
that's true,
because-
right,
Right at the beginning, tell them right up front.
Website.
yeah.
On the website before you send it.
The notice of decision, no.
Yeah.
No,
On the website.
it wouldn't be on
No,
the
their
website.
application and all their information is on the website because we put their application up there, you know.
We got it there.
And so it's usually there for 2-3 weeks before the decision even goes out. So they could just see when the meeting is and they could just send an email reminder or something. I mean, I don't know how sophisticated it is.
I don't know how they do it. But this one here is $6,953. This one's $499. Here's another one. Oh, they like that $6,953.
Those are all Nottingham.
Yeah, these are all, look, I'll pass them around. It's scary.
Sounds like a nice little
Another one,
business.
$5,650.
Jeez.
And they have all these crazy fees that we don't even have listed on our fee schedule. It's just
Should we?
nuts. I know, right? But,
Set a new
It'll
benchmark.
start to look like the electric bill.
but yeah, I like that idea of putting it in the signature because then I don't have to keep typing it. 'Cause I've got some other things in
Town of
there.
Nottingham only accepts, you know, fees paid by check, you know, something, maybe we need to put it on the website, I don't know, or where the fee structure is, just so people know that we're
Yeah.
never gonna ask you.
Yeah, we
for
do not
a
take
wire.
wire transfers. One thing that's a toughie situation for me though too is, they may be done with the application fee, but then when we have the Blair's fees that I have to figure in the escrow amount, so they may get bills for me down the road for the escrow, so I haven't quite figured out how to word it that.
It'll never be a wire transfer request.
It'll never be a
Or
wire
gift cards or
transfer.
something like that.
Exactly.
I mean, those are the two main ones, are gift cards and wire transfers.
Well, that or they'll start adding radio buttons for you to just click on and go pay. You know,
Yeah.
that may be the next thing.
They may have them in the emails and I just don't, I
Yeah.
haven't been given that, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
The other thing too is, it might not even be like after the money, and they're just trying to get email addresses that have live human beings to them. Like a lot of times that's what they're doing. They're just, as soon as you click through it, you know, it can capture your information, and they can sell that to somebody else and say, yep, these emails are active emails. We got a response.
Explain all.
I wonder, if limiting some information on the website, you know, like if all that information for address and email, whatever emails is posted on the website, I wonder if that should be limited, for the public. Like have the pertinent information, but should the whole
I
thing.
mean, what we think that's probably something that's going to be, you know, that sort of thing, I think, is required for these applications, so I don't know if we can really not have that available.
We can ask, but to your point, we can ask for it on the application, but can we, when we scan it, does the public need to know their private email address?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we could do is make it part of the application, but that document is kept as a hard copy in the office. So if someone does need to get that does have a right to it, through a FOIA or whatever, then they can come into the office and get it. We've talked about that at our SRPC, because a lot of it is filtering up to us from all the 18 communities that we oversee. It is widespread, we are hearing about it. I think, because Jen, my manager, she does the same thing I do for Wakefield. I think they've either talked about or implemented doing just that, taking it off the applications. I can follow up and see what the status is of that and see how it's going.
Yeah, there are many towns that don't even post the applications at all on their websites. So you'd have to go in and look at a hard copy. So the fact that we do is kind of, you know, something that's not standard.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate it because it makes things easy to,
I love
you know,
it,
find.
you know, because I'm not here all the time and I need to see those things. So,
Especially going back historically to look at other cases and
Yeah.
seeing those documents can be very helpful. But I think there is, you know, it definitely could be something where the application part isn't put up there and it's just the site plans, the narrative, that type of thing. Instead, although that seems like that would create more work as well.
It would be a lot of work, and then when we require the applicant to give us the electronic copy now, then they're gonna have to redact things, and sounds like a snowball of wow.
Well, when you get the electronic copy, if, I'm assuming you have a PDF editor, you can just blackline it there before you upload it.
Or just pull that
Pretty-
page out of it.
yeah.
It's only on one page. The
Yeah,
personally
there you go.
identifiable information is only on one page. I mean, that page could just be pulled out.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get uploaded.
Yep.
I mean, that's very easy. Because their home address is still gonna be on it because it's on every
Yeah,
document.
yeah.
So that's sort of hard to avoid. Their name,
Names and phone numbers and email addresses.
I think phone numbers and email addresses are two biggest things. And it seems like email is the biggest thing because that's the one how everyone's getting contact.
Sure.
I haven't heard of anyone getting phone calls or text messages yet.
But that might be the next step.
It could very well be.
Yeah.
But I think those two things are, justifiably something you could keep on a separate document in the file folder or something like that.
Is our police chief aware of
I just sent one of these cases to the police last week.
That's what you do.
The most recent one, she said that they had sent it forward.
Well, maybe
So-
the three of us can discuss how much work that would end up being and if that's a feasible thing to start doing.
And it's not everyone, right? It's not every case.
Not everybody tells us,
Yeah,
so.
that's a good point. I mean, should we
If
put
you're
some,
gonna do it for one, you
should-
gotta do it for
should we
one.
put some
Yeah.
dummy ones up there to see how it comes back to us? Like, where are they getting the email address from, like on the application or
That's a
something?
good idea.
Yeah, right. Big brother, he's there. Because the other thing too is like, a lot of times the email address is the engineering firm or the surveyor firm. I don't
Yeah,
hear from them, it's usually the applicant, the homeowner.
Ian did.
Really?
Yeah, Ian.
Okay.
They're probably
I was
just
gonna say,
scraping
I've
every
got-
email they can and sending it out and hope,
I've got-
cast
You've
away.
got them too?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just immediately ignore them.
Sure, yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I get them pretty regularly from the various towns that I work in.
Okay. Cause your email address is on there. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, my work email.
I think we just need to make the public know.
Yeah.
And like, you have to hear things 3 times. I have to tell them in the beginning, we have to tell them along the process, we have to tell them at the end.
Yeah.
Have it in the email. We've got it all over the website. Ellen modified her message and made a whole page of it, and, so I know it's been on the website for a long time. But not everybody looks at it. But I'm just saying that we have taken steps to try to protect the public.
Maybe at the end of our meetings, like if we approve something,
Yes.
we could just say, you will receive no further request for funding from us, that
Right,
all
every
your fees
meeting,
are paid
yep.
in full, unless it's something with a subdivision, and just say, you can expect X down the road.
Yep.
Something like that, but the simple ones that we've seen for the sheds and stuff, you're done. You don't owe us anything more. And just tell them.
We could definitely bring it up
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah, every single meeting.
Tracy? On the abutters list, we don't require any email address or phone number.
Butters list, no.
So the only place that it really shows up is in the subdivision, in this case, subdivision application under owner, right?
I think so. I think that's the only place it's located.
Do we need their email address?
A lot of them do like to be alerted at every step.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as part of the application process, if we took out the email block, we'll probably stop that in there.
Yeah.
But the point is, do we need their email address on the application? I'm thinking not.
I don't think it, I mean,
That, or does that need to be posted on the website, then the scammer can say, oh, here's their email and easy pickings?
Might be easier to omit that page like you've suggested, Blair.
Yeah, I
Because
think
I'm
it-
assuming you're gonna need I
We
mean,
could
they're
just-
gonna want documents, they're gonna want things emailed.
Yeah, if we
And
could-
she can have it,
yeah,
but it doesn't have to be posted on this particular page, is all I'm thinking.
Yeah, we could just have a separate page that has contact information for all all the people that are involved. And that sheet
Yeah.
isn't part of the uploaded part.
right,
And then we take it off those different areas where you're seeing it.
yeah.
That would make sense.
So it's only one place, and that one place
Okay.
is left off the uploaded part.
I was thinking it
Transmittal
was throughout, I figured the abutters and everybody else.
Yeah, no, it's really just name and address that's throughout because of, that's what we do.
Yeah, no.
But I think there's only one or two places where we ask for email and phone number. And we do need it, like I reach out to people sometimes when I need clarification on
Yeah,
stuff,
I understand the
know.
need for it.
wire
I'm just saying
transfer.
it doesn't have to be there.
I'll just get my payment. My best friends call me
Who's getting a new
cash.
car?
Okay, any other comments on I think we beat that one to death pretty well. Any more group discussion parts? I think the planning board kind of has a lot of discussions about zoning ordinances, regulations, just as kind of an ongoing thing that we do. So I don't know if we need to rehash any of those things, unless any of the board members have anything in particular. But we're also at 8:06, so might be good to keep things moving. So was there anything else group discussion wise that you thought we should bring up, Blair?
No, I have one item I could bring up, but there's nothing else that I wanted to really get covered.
Okay. So then next thing on the agenda is public comment. Planning board reserves time during every meeting for the public to come in and voice their opinion, give us advice, whatever it is that might be on their mind. It is 8:07 and I'm going to open the public comment now. Is there anybody from the public here who would like to speak? I'm seeing no one, so I'm closing the public comment at 8:07. So next steps. Blair, is this something that you wanna?
Sure.
Okay. I
Yeah.
know you said you didn't wanna talk a lot during this meeting.
Yeah, I knew it was gonna be, there'll be plenty of my talking, but I just thought I could offload a little bit. No, I mentioned this earlier, as far as zoning amendments getting us marching towards March 2027. The process will kick off starting next month. As I had mentioned earlier, we do have some things that we're gonna have to address on account of RSA changes. SRPC is currently working through a document that can be made available to all communities, and then they can decide how to move forward with it. Once that's available, I'll bring it to you all and share it around, and we'll start addressing those. There's other ones that we've been talking about. I don't know yet what ones are gonna bubble up to the surface and actually get addressed. So if you have your own, Dale's talked about the definition of structures, talked a little bit about accessory uses and setbacks and stuff. So those are some things that we can put on the list. We've already started the process on subdivision and site plan review. We do have our first hearing coming up.
We've got some good momentum going.
Yeah. Like I said, we started with some low hanging fruit, but we talked for a while about bonding tonight. We still haven't even addressed that, and that has to be dealt with in our regulations on how we're gonna handle that, given the RSA changes it's like 3 years ago now. So, consider this your announcement that process is beginning, so if you have comments, things you wanna send, please do. Speaking of comments, the housing chapter is out there. It's been presented to the board, the planning board. It will be put up for adoption on a hearing on September 23rd. I would love to get comments before that meeting so that I can make the adjustments and get the document in its final format for the board to adopt that meeting if they so choose. So it's not currently on the town website, but I will get it to Tracy so that she can put it up there. Again, there's a master plan update subcommittee section where you'll be able to find that. The PowerPoint presentation is currently up there. You can see that. And then the natural resources chapter will be following right behind as well.
And I think the land use chapter will probably follow that one pretty closely too, because we're pretty much done with it at this point. Ready for it to be looked at and debated.
Quick question, do you sometimes present two in one meeting? Because historic resources should be ready at the same time.
I mean, it's what we're doing September 23rd. The housing will be up for adoption in a hearing format. The natural resources will be in front of the board as an agenda item to receive a presentation. So the hearing for adoption would be in October.
Okay, 'cause
Was the natural resources presentation not on the 9th?
I keep getting it backwards. Is that what we end up deciding?
Because I think the hearing, we needed enough time for, I think the 23rd is when the adoption hearing for the housing chapter was.
Yeah.
But my recollection is that the presentation for the natural resources chapter was gonna be on the 9th.
No,
Maybe that's.
I thought we set the hearing on the 9th for the site plan subdivision regulations.
Okay, yeah,
Because I won't be ready to get it to you by the 9th.
sure, yeah, okay.
The natural
Yep,
resources
no, I was
chapter.
misremembering that we had
Yeah.
quite a few hearings and presentations. coming
Yeah,
up. Okay.
yeah. So,
But yeah, to answer Mary's question, we certainly, I think, could do land use and historic resources, the presentations at the same meeting, and very possibly the, adoption hearings in tandem as well. Because the land use chapter is pretty
that's a big
beefy.
one, yeah, you've got.
But the historic resources isn't
Historic
too-
resources.
Yeah,
The primary reason I wanna get that going is that, we're looking into getting the Grange designated as a New Hampshire historic building. And we have the state coming tomorrow to give us our first overview. And part of it is that if we have these action plans, items as a part of our new master plan, we can say, this is what the community is looking at, and will help to support what we do in terms of looking for funding.
yeah,
So,
okay, makes sense.
self-serving.
Drew, I also need to set up the next master plan meeting, so I'll
Yep.
send out, work around some of those meeting dates and
Great,
get
yeah.
another one set up.
And I think when Mary and I are done with the chapter, we'll send that over to you so that you can distribute it to the committee members, and, then we can figure out when we want to go over that one.
Yep.
That would be great.
The big question that I asked yesterday is formatting. Are we going to use the formatting that Blair has used for housing? He's busy texting. Or what's the formatting? Because we need to decide on the font and the pagination and all that.
Yeah, and I think we'll get there, but since you're leading the charge, we might use that, or we can take all of these chapters and then.
someone else will have to do that.
Yes.
I don't mind doing it. I think it is an important thing to bring the formatting of those into, one, to conform them all to be the same, in particular because the old master plan from 2011 used like serif fonts and things like that that are a little more difficult to read, not as accessible as more modern fonts. And I know that's a nitpicky thing, but a lot of people are reading these master plans online now and not printed versions, and it does help readability quite a bit to change things like some of the spacing, the font styles, things like that. And I would be glad to do that type of formatting as well. I'm gonna be reformatting the entire land use chapter to use the new formatting that Blair and I discussed and decided upon. So I'll have some experience doing that myself.
Well, I'll put it on the agenda for the next master plan meeting, and we can go through that, and you can show.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll have a couple of chapters that we can look at that use that formatting.
Yeah, having done it for 2 chapters, I think the formatting for the document, the narrative part is fine. It's the action plan that just is wonky. But we tried to utilize last time's font. We just, or last time's layout.
Yeah.
And we did update the fonts, again, for accessibility, readability reasons, because we as an organization had to do it. So we have adopted all new standardized, fonts and sizes and stuff. And so I suggested, Drew, we at least make that change, but the rest of it is kind of laid out the same way. So I think, again, the narrative piece is fine, it's the action plan part that's a little tricky.
What's wonky or tricky about that in your
It's the
opinion?
spacing, like you'll say, objective one, and then you tab over a bunch, you write your text, and then you come down, you indent, and then you have a lot of spacing again. And it just didn't seem to be following any type of formatting standard that I was accustomed to. Whether it's
It's
a,
2011.
We do things our own
What do
way
you
in
want?
Nottingham.
I mean, come on.
I like my bullets.
I thought
okay?
it was pretty damn good.
I like my bullets. There's a line, a double line under action plan. I have no idea where it came from. I don't understand it. So yeah, there's things in there.
Drew's got you.
Get it figured out.
So, the formatting, double spacing and lines are important, but what about the actual accomplishment of the goals that the people of this town are asking for in our master plan, in our 2011 and our current one?
That's a great
And-
topic for the next subcommittee meeting on master plan topics, yeah.
Have not been met. We need some ideas and some implementation goals that are going to actually accomplish something, so that in 5 years from now, we could say, hey, we set this plan in action and this is what happened. 2011, we set a plan in action and it said, do these things, and most of those goals did not get accomplished because the goals were nebulous and vague.
Some of them did.
Welcome to
Some of
government,
them,
yeah.
some good goals got accomplished.
And one of our discussions at the last meeting was that in the end, when we're pretty much there, all of these action plans will be put into one document. And then we will assign different groups, individuals, volunteers, noble people to see that these things move forward. And so you can't do much more than that. It's pretty much volunteer.
That's what we did last time,
Okay,
and he's right.
well, come on,
But
don't
again,
hurt the cause, dude.
I'm not trying to hurt the cause, I'm
not
just
either.
saying, there needs to be something new brought to the table.
Well,
That's all.
a clicker, like we train our dog, No, I understand, because some of them, I think, are like esoteric. It's like, I don't know, I feel overwhelmed, I don't know how to move forward with it. Maybe what we need to do is really make our action items more that you can see, yes, it's moving forward, you are able to accomplish it. And so, I don't know,
Measurable goals.
yeah.
What, in 1 year from now, will there be one affordable house, one smaller house, one elderly house, one home for a first-time buyer, one rental?
I don't
one-
think that's our
one-
goal.
Anything, will anything change in 1 year from now or 5 years from now?
Well, we do have to remember that these master plan goals, while some of them are lofty, we are assigning them to a board or an entity that needs to take those forward. It's not that we're saying this is the exact goal with the outcome, but that board needs to be looking at it, and they're responsible for more action items from that.
And some of the committees that have developed these action items have an ownership, I think, with those action items. And that, I think, is where the measurable aspect of things should come from. We did this is what we were thinking. Can you please do what it needs to take, whichever board it is, whoever is assigned the action, to complete this? That's what it needs. It really isn't, the planning board can do a lot of addressing of some of that stuff, but it's very difficult to get that information back in to complete the task. Again, it's,
And so, it's across the board, I mean, there's
Yeah.
select board,
Yep.
action items, there's, Conservation Commission.
Yep.
As you said, noble people, maybe, we need noble people to step up and do some of these.
something that Blair has suggested is that after the master plan has been updated, that a implementation subcommittee be formed, comprised of people who weren't necessarily on the master plan subcommittee, because those people put in a lot of work and are probably a little burnt out from the process, to oversee the implementation of those and do that type of like reaching out to boards and having, you know, maybe it's liaisons from these different boards and commissions who weren't members of the master plan subcommittee, who make up that implementation committee to try to keep these things moving forward so that we don't get 10 years down the road and say, well, we got 30 to 50% of these checked off, but which isn't bad for a, you know, town made up of
But that's only when you
volunteers.
go back and look at them. You never really sat there and went, oh yeah, number 4.
Sure,
I think it
yeah.
was Number 4.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was,
And the implementation committee could even look at the process of doing that, right? The stuff that you're bringing up that could be changed, that could be something that committee looks at to try to keep things pushing forward.
Yeah.
Because there is no point in making master plan goals if there's no momentum to try to complete them, right?
Well, measurable, so like in action plan, 2011 master plan, action H 1.3, specifically directed the planning board to view multifamily ordinance and its area and dimensional standards were too restrictive to provide, this is a quote, too restrictive to provide any practical opportunity for multifamily housing. And that action was assigned immediate priority. 2011 and 16 years later, there were, on the master plan, there was a 50% increase in multifamilies from 8 units to 12 units, which equates to like 0.37% of our housing in the town to 0.57% of our housing. It's not even 1%. And it's just, there are people that rent. That can't afford to buy, that may not be living here for the next 10 years, they're temporary, whatever people's needs are, these were identified by the master plan, and our people in our town are asking for these things and we're not giving it. So we just need to be have some ideas, some positive ideas to say, hey, here's the changes we need to make to implement these goals, and they need to be specific and measurable. One of them was housing for aging in place, elderly housing. And since 2011, I looked on multiple listing service, I'm a real estate broker, and there were 4,259 55 plus sales in Rockingham County and exactly 0 in Nottingham, not 1, 0. So why are there age restricted homes in other communities all around us? This is a normal thing and not in our town. What are the obstacles to putting this in place? Certainly some people have said, well, it's going to increase our services, but if you compare an impact of an elderly house that pays property taxes and then a 4-bedroom new home that they're putting in that may have 3 or 4 kids at $20,000 per kid going to our school, the impact is...
So Chris, this is the same stuff that you've gone over in the meetings, you know, quite a few times, and you've been
nothing has
told to
happened.
send
I've been
those
talking about
comments
this
to
for
Blair.
3 years, and you're interrupting me, I'm not done
The
yet.
master plan subcommittee has already met on the housing chapter. Yep, it's already met on the housing chapter. You've had your opportunity to bring these things up, but you didn't attend those meetings, and so you lost out on your opportunity to suggest those. So we're gonna stop that conversation here. You
talking
aren't
about
offering
the
anything new.
people of this
You're
town
not
and not our
offering anything
personal
new, Chris,
agendas
so
and
we're going to
opinions.
stop there. Okay. It's 8:23. I think it's a good time to take a motion to adjourn.
So
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Sorry.
I guess we can all vote and say, all in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye, yeah. Okay, thank you.